Okay, I was just driving home. It's 10 o'clock at night, long day at the office, but I've got to talk about this. And I listened for about 30 minutes to Bloomberg Financial with all these snake like sounding economists. And it's their job to sound mainline, to sound trustworthy, to sound milquetoast, to sound authoritative. And it was all a script. I listened to probably 35 minutes of it, and it was all them reading off a script. They had like five different economists on, and they were all saying the exact same thing. It was nothing less than astounding. And they all kept saying, well, the European markets plunged today, and all this stuff's happening in Switzerland because Switzerland didn't enter the euro and they've been too strong. And we've got to achieve a union, an economic union in Europe, so that the rich countries can prop up the poor countries. And, there'll need to be another big total bailout. And, the problem is, they said, is democracy. The Germans don't want to keep bailing everything out, but they'll have to do it because that's the only reasonable thing to do. And this is the way to go, on and on and on. And of course, we told you over a decade ago, the plan with the euro was to consolidate the countries, get them in an economic agreement, and then implode them. And then out of that, build a new open monetary union. And they're going to implode each region of the world, set up the global carbon tax, the global VAT, that we then pay into the very bankers that have entered the Ponzi scheme. And then that won't fix it, so they'll need more power. See, they're crazy like a fox. They've designed this implosion. That's why none of them go to prison for creating 1,000+ trillion in derivatives. The cities aren't bankrupt. The counties aren't bankrupt. Greece wasn't bankrupt. Iceland wasn't bankrupt. Ireland wasn't bankrupt. It always comes out that over 90% of the debt is owed by the mega banks. So now they're going to hold everybody hostage, just like they did in 2008, get even more power, get the countries to sign over more authority, and then in a couple of years, grab even more power. I mean, these banksters want a post-industrial world. That's my biggest problem with them, not just their run-of-the-mill corruption. It's the far beyond that. It's a total move to consolidate. But I want to show you a few of the articles. Europe inching towards fiscal union. Inching. They just had the 50th anniversary of the euro in 2007, and people were like, well, I thought it started in 2000. The so-called trade deal was a, quote, economic union. So now they just hold them hostage. Continuing, here's George Soros. In Eurozone, banking fear feeds on itself. And Soros in here says it could be a lot worse than Lehman Brothers was here. And what did they get out of that? Big zombie banks consolidating, zombie banks that finance and own, in many cases, zombie mainstream corporate media. These people are going to take our whole society down. They're the opposite of free market. Our country's been hijacked since 1913. It's time to stop it. It's time to end the craziness. And in closing, the wildest part about all this is all out in the open, but they told yuppies for decades, world government doesn't exist, big banks don't run it. Okay, world government doesn't exist, big banks don't run it. If anybody talks about it, they're crazy. And so now, even as it's admitted, like zombies, the yuppies at the polo clubs and the golf courses, losing everything they've got, they still just hold on to being conned. Madoff has said from prison, hey, the first thing I learned when I got to Wall Street was it's all a Ponzi scheme and it's all a scam. And he's just a mid-level guy they burned. He's terrible, but the whole thing's a Ponzi scheme. But once they get everybody invested in their system, it's too big to fail, so they just keep you trapped as they slowly destroy you instead of just standing up to them. Well, the choice is up to you. Get the word out about these people or be their slaves. But there's the guy that said he had a very good crisis in 2008 and a very good crisis in 2009 in Europe. I mean, there's just no end to the arrogance of these people. And he wants your guns. That's another thing about Bloomberg. I mean, here's this guy who wants carbon taxes on American factories because he represents a consortium that's exempt in Europe, Eastern Europe, Asia. Here's a guy that wants your guns. I mean, these people are just sickening, sickening mobster parasites who just run rampant with their corruption. And it's time they be brought to heel. It's time we stand up against these. See, humans are designed to face a Hitler tyrant or a Mao tyrant or a Stalin tyrant. You know, a guy in a military uniform, not these little autocratic finance oligarch scum who just creep around and just run all their white-collar scams on us and then run our military and are setting up a huge police state grid to keep us in line. We've got to recognize who these people are, and they've got to be brought to justice. It's us or them.